The town of Blackthorn was a forgotten speck on the map, nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, where the trees grew so dense they seemed to swallow the sun. It was the kind of place where people didn't ask questions, and those who did rarely stayed long. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the Hollow, a sunken valley just beyond the town, shrouded in mist and rumors. They said it was cursed, that the ground itself whispered to those who ventured too close. Most dismissed it as folklore, but the disappearances over the years gave the stories weight. People went into the Hollow and they didn't come back. Elliot Harper wasn't one to believe in ghost stories. A 28-year-old journalist with a knack for chasing leads, he built a modest career uncovering truths in small-town scandals. Blackthorn was just another assignment, a chance to dig into the mystery of the Hollow for a podcast series on unsolved disappearances. His producer had warned him to tread lightly. Small towns didn't take kindly to outsiders poking around, but Elliot thrived on skepticism. Armed with a recorder, a notebook, and a flashlight, he arrived in Blackthorn on a chilly October evening, the kind where the air bit at your knuckles. The town was as unwelcoming as he'd expected. The diner's neon sign flickered like it was on its last legs, and the few patrons inside stared as he slid into a booth. The waitress, a woman with graying hair and a permanent frown, dropped a menu in front of him without a word. Elliot tried to break the ice. "Heard anything about the Hollow?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. Her eyes narrowed. "You one of those city folks looking for trouble?" "Just curious," he said, flashing a disarming smile. "Heard it's got a reputation." She leaned in, her voice low. "Reputation's earned. Stay away from that place. Ain't nothing good down there." She walked off before he could press further. Undeterred, Elliot spent the next day interviewing locals. Most clammed up the moment he mentioned the Hollow, but a few let slip fragments of the town's history. Decades ago, a mining company had set up in the valley, blasting through rock to unearth coal. The operation shut down after a cave-in killed a dozen workers. Their bodies never recovered. Some said the miners had dug too deep, unearthing something that didn't belong in the light. Others claimed the whisper started after the collapse. Faint voices carried on the wind, luring people into the valley. By the time the mine closed, the disappearances had begun. Elliot's breakthrough came on his third day, when he met Amos, an old man who lived on the edge of town. Amos was a recluse, his porch cluttered with rusted tools and jars of murky liquid. He agreed to talk, but only after Elliot handed over a 20. Sitting on a creaking chair, Amos lit a pipe and exhaled a cloud of sour smoke. "The Hollow ain't just a place," he said. "It's alive. Got a hunger. You hear the whispers, don't you listen. They'll pull you in, make you think it's someone you know. My brother went down there in '72. Heard our ma calling him. She'd been dead 10 years. Elliot scribbled notes, his pulse quickening. "What's down there? What causes it?" Amos's eyes glinted. "Some say it's the miners, trapped and angry. Others think it's older, something the miners woke up. All I know is you go in, you don't come out whole. If you come out at all." That night, Elliot sat in his motel room, replaying Amos's words. The story was gold, creepy, layered, perfect for the podcast. But he needed more. He needed to see the Hollow for himself. The rational part of his brain told him it was just a valley, probably home to some natural phenomenon like gas leaks or acoustic tricks. The locals' fear was likely superstition, amplified by grief over lost loved ones. Still, a small, nagging voice urged caution. He ignored it. The next morning, Elliot packed a backpack with water, a map, and his recorder. The trail to the Hollow was unmarked, but Amos had given him rough directions. Follow the creek past the old oak, then head downhill where the trees thin. The forest was eerily quiet as he set out, the only sounds his boots crunching on leaves and the occasional snap of a twig. The air grew colder the deeper he went, and a faint mist clung to the ground, curling around his ankles. After an hour he found it. The Hollow was a gaping wound in the earth, a bowl-shaped depression ringed by gnarled trees. The mist was thicker here, swirling like a living thing. Elliot's flashlight beam barely cut through it. He switched on his recorder and spoke softly. "October 12th, 10:47 a.m. I've reached the Hollow. Visibility's low, maybe 10 feet. There's a heaviness to the air, hard to describe." He took a step forward, then froze. A sound, faint like a sigh, drifted from the mist. He strained to listen, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "Probably just the wind," he muttered, though the trees weren't moving. He pressed on, descending into the valley. The ground was uneven, littered with rocks and roots. Old mining equipment lay scattered, rusted picks, a broken cart, a coil of frayed rope. It felt like stepping into a graveyard. The whispers started when he reached the center of the hollow. They were soft at first, barely audible, like voices muffled by a wall. Elliot's heart thudded as he turned in a slow circle, trying to pinpoint the source. "Hello," he called, his voice swallowed by the fog. The whispers grew clearer, forming words he couldn't quite catch. They weren't English or any language he recognized. The sound sent a shiver down his spine, not from cold but from something primal, like a prey animal sensing a predator. He clicked his recorder. "I'm hearing something. Voices maybe. It's indistinct, but it's definitely there. This could be infrasound or..." He stopped. One voice stood out, sharp and familiar. Elliot. It was his sister's voice. Claire, who died in a car accident 3 years ago. The sound hit him like a punch, stealing his breath. "Claire?" he whispered, hating how desperate he sounded. The voice came again, softer, pleading. "Elliot, help me." He stumbled forward, following the sound. It wasn't possible. She was gone. He'd seen her body, but the voice was so real, so raw. The mist thickened and the whispers multiplied, overlapping into a chorus of murmurs. Other voices joined Claire's, his mother, his childhood friend, people he hadn't thought of in years. They called his name, begged him to come closer. His flashlight flickered, then died, plunging him into gray haze. Panic clawed at him, but he forced himself to stop. "This isn't real," he said aloud, clutching the recorder like a lifeline. "It's a trick. Hallucinations, maybe carbon monoxide." He checked his map, but the paper was damp and smudged, useless. The whispers grew louder, angrier, no longer pleading but demanding. "Stay," they hissed. "Join us." Elliot ran. He didn't know which way was up or out, but he ran, branches scraping his face, roots tripping him. The voices followed, relentless, burrowing into his skull. His foot caught on something, a rusted chain, and he fell hard, his recorder skidding into the mist. Pain shot through his ankle, but he crawled forward, gasping. The ground beneath him felt wrong, too soft, like it was breathing. Then he saw it. A figure in the fog, humanoid but not human. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It didn't move, just stood there watching. Elliot's scream caught in his throat. The whispers surged, a deafening roar, and the figure vanished. He scrambled to his feet, ignoring the pain, and ran until the mist began to thin. He didn't stop until he reached the creek, collapsing on the bank. The whispers were gone, replaced by the rush of water. His hands shook as he checked his pockets. His recorder was gone, lost in the hollow. The map was a sodden mess. His ankle throbbed and blood trickled from a gash on his cheek. But he was alive. Back in Blackthorn, the locals didn't ask questions. The waitress at the diner gave him a knowing look as she poured his coffee. "Told you to stay away," she said. Elliot didn't argue. He left town that night, the podcast forgotten. He told himself it was over, that he'd escaped. But the whispers didn't stop. They followed him home, faint at first, barely audible in the hum of the city. At night, when the world was quiet, they grew louder, calling his name. He stopped sleeping, stopped answering his phone. His editor called, asking for the Blackthorn story, but Elliot couldn't bring himself to talk about it. How could he explain the hollow? How could he describe the thing in the mist? One night, he found an old cassette in his mailbox, unlabeled. His hands trembled as he played it. His own voice came through, tinny and distorted, describing the hollow. Then the whispers started, the same ones he'd heard in the valley. They weren't on the tape, they were in the room all around him. "Elliot," Claire's voice said, so close he felt her breath on his neck. "Come back." He burned the cassette, but it didn't help. The whispers were in his head now, constant, relentless. He saw the figure again, standing at the edge of his vision, always gone when he turned. His apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in. He stopped going outside. 3 weeks later, Elliot's neighbor called the police, complaining about a strange smell. They found his apartment empty, the door unlocked, his belongings untouched. His car was still in the lot. The official report listed him as missing, another name added to Blackthorn's long history of vanishings. In the hollow, the mist never lifts. The trees stand silent, their roots drinking deep from the earth. The whispers wait, patient and hungry, for the next soul to wander too close. And somewhere in the heart of the valley, something stirs, its long limbs unfolding, its eyeless face turned toward the light.